Okay, hello everyone. Let's get started. So in the previous video, we talked about how we create our first EC2 instance, so virtual machine on top of our AWS virtual infrastructure. So if you haven't watched that video, you should probably do that. So you know how to create an instance, how to use an SSH key to be able to connect to it, and that you should also stop your instance once you don't need it, so you are not charged for that. So here is our instance, which we stopped. So no additional charges. So once your instance is stopped, you are not billed for it, right? Okay, so let's start it once again. So we select the instance we would like to start, instance state, start instance. So the downside of stopping an instance is that each time you start your instance, it will get a new public IP address. So that's a downside, because if you are running a server, for example, web server, and you need to bind your domain name to IP address. Once you stop it, and launch once again, the public IP address is completely different. So you need to rebind your domain to a new IP address, right? So since we are not doing anything like that, so we are just playing, exploring AWS possibilities, so that's not a problem for us. Okay, and last time we also created SSH key, private SSH key, which should be used to connect to our instance. So I saved it under WS load. Okay, if you are using Debian as myself, the username should be admin. And you see, the last time we launched our instance, the IP address was like that, and now the public IP address is completely different, so I need to change it, right? Okay. Uh, let me copy it. You can press here to copy and paste it here. Okay. Let it be safe. And also, as a reminder, under connection SSH authentication, here you should provide your key in format of PPK, which is understandable by PuTTY. Once it's done, open. So since we are connecting to a new IP address, so we get an alert whether we want to accept the public key. Okay, and we are here. Okay, so here what you see, it's an IP address, but that's a private IP address which is used only inside our VPC. If so 119, and let's see, 119. So that's a private IP address. So what the benefit of using a private IP address? Why do we need private IP address if we have a public IP address which is routable on entire internet? So why do we need also a private IP address for our instance? The answer is very simple. So if you have multiple AWS services running in your VPC, or for example, two EC2 instances in one VPC, and you want these instances to communicate with each other, you basically have two options how to do that. So the first, of course, you can use public IP addresses, but that means that your traffic will leave AWS cloud, go through the public internet, and then move into AWS cloud once again. So the route will be quite long. That's first thing. So the latency will be larger. And the second thing is that your traffic leaves secure AWS environment. And the third thing, you will be charged for that. So as you know, you are charged for outgoing traffic. So the traffic which leaves AWS infrastructure. So, but if you use private IP address, your traffic doesn't leave AWS infrastructure, meaning that your traffic is secured, latency is smaller, and you are not charged for that. So it's obvious if two EC2 instances communicate with each other, you should use private IP address. Okay, so here you can see admin, meaning that we are here logged in under admin. So if you are not familiar with Linux, there is a super user in each Linux-based system, which is called root. So that's the user which can do whatever he wants. So first, let's install a web server. We will use Apache. apt. So to do that, let's use apt-get command, install apache2, right? And you can see, so the error is permission denied. So blah blah blah, are you root? So only root user is allowed to install anything on this operating system. So the question is, so we have only admin user, so we have only one SSH key. So how we would use our root account? So how we can impersonate root? So to do that, we have a couple of options. So the first thing, before each command, like this one, we should type sudo, saying that we would like to impersonate root, and we want to launch this command being root, right? Let's do that. Okay. So now you see that we were successful enough, and what we see that to be able to install web server, we would need to install some other components as well. And after this operation, additional 55 megs will be used. Would we like to continue? Yes, no. Let's say no. Abort. Because I want to show the second thing, how we can impersonate root on permanent basis. While we are logged in, so while we are using this session, we will be root. To do that, we write sudo as previously, but write su. Opa. And as you see, we have now impersonated root on permanent basis. You see, before we had this admin and now we have root. Meaning that all upcoming commands will be executed as from root. So we don't need to write sudo before each command. So if you know that you need a lot of commands to be executed as root, it's more convenient to type sudo su before, and then all upcoming commands will be under root. Okay, let's go and install it. Install apache2. Yes. Okay, so that it will take some time while it downloads, installs, and configures everything. Okay. Now let's check whether our service is running or not. So that we use systemctl status apache2. And so systemctl, that's a daemon on Linux which is used to interact with services. So apache2 is a service, web service. So systemctl status, that's the command. What we want to do with this service, we can request status, we can start, we can stop, and we can restart. So we have just requested status, and we see that it's active running. Okay, let's check. We know our public IP address, Let's now just type and see whether we can connect to it. And as you see, we don't see anything. Why? Well, most probably that's because of our security settings. If you remember, each subnet has a NACL, Network Access Control List, that's first, and also on interface Ethernet 0 by default, we have also security group enabled. Let's investigate what we have in our security group and also NACL configured, right? Security. Let's see. So security group. And you see the only inbound rule for this security group is to allow SSH. Yeah, so we are not allowed to access any other port on this instance, including port number 80, which is HTTP port. And the outbound rules, the only one that everything is allowed as an outbound traffic. Yeah, so for inbound, now we need to add a different rule which would allow us to connect to our web service using port 80. Okay, and as a source, we use any IP address, which makes sense because anyone from the entire internet can connect to our service. Save rules. And as you remember, for security groups, all changes are immediate, right? But the thing is that seems that we have overwritten our SSH rule, meaning that we are not able to connect to our instance anymore, as you see. So the connection has lost. Okay. Yeah, so instead of adding a new rule, we just added the previous one. Save rules. Okay, now it should be fine. And if we can see multiple, yeah, we can see two rules. Okay, and as you can see, timeout because we have overwritten that rule. Okay, now should be fine. And let's connect to our service once again. And as you can see, apache2 Debian default page, meaning that our apache2 service is running as it should. Okay, so that's a great success. Okay, and that would also conclude our first video related to EC2 instance orientation. So in the next video, we'll see how we can, in addition to our web service, install database, because any page basically uses database as well. Yeah, and we can also, we will also see how we can enable also secure as a HTTP, meaning HTTPS on port 443. Okay, but that would be all for today. So if you don't want to be charged for running this service, don't forget to stop it. Yeah, as a reminder, after you launch it once again, it will have a new public IP address. On the other hand, you are not charged for running it. Yeah. Okay, so if you have any questions, something is not clear, something is not working, just give it a shot in the comments. Also, if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, that's the right time to do that so you don't miss any upcoming videos. And that would be all for today. Thanks to all for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.